So in tonight's episode of Carving Up Live, we're going to be talking about basically everything. Going to lead the show off with last night's Academy Awards 98th Annual. Talk about Michael B. Jordan's incredible win for Best Actor. Discuss that. Get to the biggest moments from last night, the biggest night in Hollywood. Shifting to sports, though. Unbelievable classic in the World Baseball Classic between Team USA and the Dominican Republic. The biggest thing that shocked me about Team USA's 2-1 win over the DR. Discuss that. Also get to Kyler Murray signed by the Minnesota Vikings. I actually think it's going to work, and I've been somebody that's been very skeptical of Kyler. Get to that. Lakers over the Nuggets in what was one of the games of the year in the NBA, and I don't buy either team as a legit championship contender in the Western Conference. I'll explain that. March Madness, my predictions, my final four on the men's and the women's bracket gets that. And of course, we've been doing for every Monday for the past month, basically, recap of episode 7 of Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. Tons to get into on today's episode of Carving Up Live. So let's drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. I am Bryson Carver, coming to you live right now from Tennessee, my beautiful home state, Tennessee, where it is currently snowing. And I don't mean like some snow. No, I'm like, it's snowing. The ground is white. Okay, last week, it was 80 degrees outside. Now it's snowing. I'm very upset about that. Just the inconsistency of pre-spring weather that we've got going on right now. I know it's not officially spring yet, but it might as well be, right? March Madness is coming up this week, which, by the way, plenty of March Madness stuff and predictions on the men's and women's side of the bracket, as you heard in the intro there, to get into in about 45 to 50 minutes from now. Tons to get into. We've got Love Story, which we've been doing over the last month or so on Mondays. We've got Oscars, we got NBA, we got NFL, we got World Baseball Classic. Tons of stuff to get into the show today. Apologies in advance for my somewhat compromised voice. Prior to the snow, weather has kind of been bothering my allergies a little bit. So if I don't sound 100%, that's why. But let's go and get into business, starting with the Academy Awards. But first, biggest night in Hollywood, the Oscars last night, and it was really good. So as far as my top moments from the show, first of all, Conan O'Brien hosting was fantastic. I think I've said on this show before that in my lifetime, I know the undisputed GOAT late night host is Johnny Carson. Like no one will argue that. In my lifetime, it's kind of like the classic NBA version. Who's the GOAT? Is it Jordan or is it LeBron? And some people like Kobe, and I'm somebody who says, hey, let's at least mention Kareem's name, and some of the younger generation like Steph. And then you had the people like, didn't Brandon Miller of the Charlotte Hornets say, you know who's the GOAT? Paul George, because their games are similar. Or Kyrie Irving, man, was the most skilled guard argument in the history of the league, certainly as it pertains to his handles, his shooting ability. Like no one reasonable is arguing they're in the GOAT discussion, but they're your favorite. They're your guy. Like, for example, I'll never argue a second that Dak Prescott's the best quarterback in the league. He's my favorite quarterback in the league. So my personal favorite late night show host, and I can only speak to my lifetime, Conan O'Brien, Craig Ferguson. Conan was fantastic for decades. Obviously, we know about the situation with him at NBC and Jay Leno. That's a whole different discussion for another show. But I thought Conan was sensational in his late night run. Craig Ferguson was freaking hysterical. It's not just because of the accent. I thought Craig Ferguson's comedy was absolutely sensational. But Conan was great last night. I thought, you have to, at the Oscars in particular, as unfortunately Chris Rock learned this the hard way, and he shouldn't have had to, but regardless, is that this is Hollywood. These are individuals, particularly actors, I should say, who spend 364 days of the year told how great they are. Now they deal with rejection. That's part of the process as well. But once you get to the pinnacle, once you get to the DiCaprios and the Meryl Streeps of the world, the Halle Berrys, like you're praised basically daily. So you got to kind of step on people's toes a little bit. Like just for 10 minutes, you got to kind of take the piss out of Hollywood's elite, right? And I thought, not per se for that room in particular, the joke he made about no British actors getting a nomination for Best Actor or Best Actress, I think he said first time since 2012 or something, and saying, yeah, but what Great Britain does with their criminals that we do not do here. He used more not explicit language, but pointed language than I'll use at fear of getting demonetized on the show. But kudos to Conan O'Brien. I thought he was great throughout the course of the show. What else we have? We'll get through some of the winners. Sean Penn winning Best Supporting Actor and not being there. Kieran Culkin was out there, and he's like, Sean Penn either he said couldn't be here or didn't want to be here to accept his Academy Award. Like, yeah, okay, that's strange. Probably my favorite moment from the entire show, honest to God. And the tributes were great as well, by the way. Tributes were great as well to Diane Keaton, to Robert Redford, to Catherine O'Hara, to all the legends, Rob Reiner, all the legends of Hollywood who unfortunately passed him last year. I thought they did a sensational job. We had Barbara Streisand and Rachel McAdams and Billy Crystal paying tribute to Rob Reiner, who was a close friend of his. I thought it was one of the better in memoriam tribute packages that I've seen at any award show, much less the Oscars. So kudos to them for that. Personally, my favorite moment. Y'all know I'm a big Star Wars fan. And obviously this year you got the Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming out. It's the first Star Wars movie to come out in theaters since, I think, Rise of Skywalker in 2019. So it's been 7 years. So very, very excited about that. And of course, to promote that and to promote other films that are coming out this year, some of the presenters are like the stars from these films. So like, okay, let's bring out Pedro Pascal, who plays, of course, Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and Sigourney Weaver, the legend. Arguably, her or Emma Stone are probably my two favorite actresses in the game right now. Who I'm a fan of her in the Alien franchise. I shouldn't say the franchise. The first two movies. The original is my personal favorite. The second one is iconic. Third is, fourth is awful. And then everything else beyond that, TV shows, rubbish. It's no good. First two movies, though, sensational. So to have Sigourney Weaver in Alien and then in Star Wars, it's perfect. And for them to have Grogu, some people know as Baby Yoda, his name's Grogu, in the seat. I think he was sitting next to Kate Hudson at the Oscars. And Sigourney Weaver is protective of him. She's like, get away from him, you. There might be children watching. I'll hold back on the colorful language, but using her iconic line from Aliens, which is kind of the classic sort of, badass kind of 80s action film. There's flamethrowers. It's James Cameron, Sigourney Weaver. Like, I like the first Alien movie in the simple sense that it's more subtle. It's more, you don't see the alien much at all, which adds to the horror, whereas in the second one, you see a bunch of them. But I thought that was fun, kind of a nod to her legendary films and also kind of a way to promote The Mandalorian and Grogu, which they showed in a trailer for. It looks really good. I thought Will Arnett's comment about, celebrating films not created by AI, and we could do a whole 2-hour podcast about AI and the positives and negatives, because I think there are both. I think there are too many alarmists about how it's going to destroy the world, and I also think there are those who maybe aren't taking it as seriously as it needs to. There needs to be regulations regardless, but the one thing I think we should all be able to agree on is, hey, AI could take jobs from actors, in particular from screenwriters. And so I think for Will Arnett on stage to make the comment he did, kudos to him. In general, the show is great. As far as the winners, you had one battle after another that won Best Picture. I was a little surprised that Sinners didn't win the Oscar for Best Picture, given the fact that it got a Academy Award record 16 nominations. But congratulations to one battle after another. Best Actor in a Leading Role, Michael B. Jordan, who we'll touch on in just a moment. Best Actress, Jessie Buckley from Hamnet, who gave a fantastic speech. Shout out to her. Sean Penn got Best Supporting Actor, one battle after another, as Kieran Culkin told the entire world. I guess he didn't want to be here. Okay. You also had Amy Madigan, who won Best Supporting Actress for Weapons. You had Paul Thomas Anderson, one battle after another, who got Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, also one battle after another. Sinners won Best Original Screenplay, and you can go up and down the list. Makeup and Hairstyle of Frankenstein, which was apt and was deserved. Kudos, though, and it felt like last night was a general celebration. Like, usually you don't see this unless it's an actor that is in their 50s, 60s, like, they've had a long career, and it's kind of like this happened with Harrison Ford a few weeks ago we know who Harrison Ford is, legend, at the Actors Awards, at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, and they honored him with like a lifetime achievement. Like, we usually don't see this with current, presumably in their prime, at the peak of their powers, in their most iconic roles type of actors or actresses. To see how everybody responded to Michael B. Jordan winning the Academy Award for the best actor in a leading role for Sinners tells you a lot about the guy. Tells you, and we'll play a soundbite from him in just a moment, but I feel like he's getting into that, if he isn't already, into that Keanu Reeves territory where it's like, yeah, literally everybody likes him. and people like working with him. He's obviously a great actor. Personally, a lot of folks' first introduction in terms of a national scene to Michael B. Jordan was when he was in Creed, the sequels to the Rocky franchise. Me personally, I remember Michael B. Jordan, and I even paid tribute to this in my IG stories, as one half of the Orange Juice duo in 2K17, NBA 2K17, the greatest 2K ever made. I don't care what anybody says, 2K17, 2K16, those are the two best. I digress. So, to see him just progress and get better over time, obviously he's in the Black Panther franchise, the whole bit. It was dope to see. He gave a fantastic speech, and afterwards he kind of talked about reflecting on this moment and what it means for him and for his family. Take a listen to Michael B. Jordan last night.
My father always told me, don't expect anything to be handed to you. You do the work, and everything else is going to figure itself out. And, there is a selfishness in understanding that in your craft, in your industry, this is a pinnacle, and this is what, our industry standard is. This is what we put value on in a big way, that competitiveness, you do want that, but at the same time, there's what's for you is for you, and you can't take anybody's blessings away from anybody else. So I'm just like walking my path, man, and just trying to be locked in. So I would encourage other actors and other, artists, no matter what their medium is to try to keep that in mind and be honest and truthful and just, dream big, man. Dream big and be kind, bro. Be honest.
And, it sounds cliche, and it's like, it's easy for him to say that now that he's at the top and he's holding the Academy Award. But, listen, if you are a talented person in a competitive field, which there's not many fields more competitive than acting, for a guy like Michael B. Jordan to go up there, again, pinnacle of his career, and say, kind of go back to the fundamentals of being successful in any field. Dream big, you got to work hard, be honest, treat people the right way. You've seen it with people, we won't name names, but we know in that industry, there are uber talented people. And the second they're out of their prime, they're out of Hollywood. Screw it, I'll name somebody. Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase was basically the face of Saturday Night Live in the 70s. You remember some of the Gerald Ford skits and Christmas Vacation movies. And the second, remember this situation when he was on Community? The second that Hollywood had an opportunity to oust Chevy Chase, gone, because he was impossible to work with. That goes for any industry. People will put up with you for a long time if you're a net positive. The second it becomes a net neutral, certainly a net negative, you're out of there. And so I think for Michael B. Jordan to emphasize that, and he did it in his acceptance speech as well, the work hard, treat people the right way, be loyal to your inner circle of people. His mom was there last night. It was a great moment with her. Shout out to him. And by the way, he joins a very, unfortunately, small group of Black actors to win the Oscar for Best Actor in a Leading Role. Sidney Poitier in 1964 was the first. We didn't get another winner until almost 40 years later with the great Denzel Washington for Training Day in 2002. Jamie Foxx playing Ray Charles in 2005 won that Academy Award. Forrest Whitaker in 2007. Will Smith, and that was the night he slapped Chris Rock in 2022, won for King Richard, and then Michael B. Jordan for Sinners last night. So just want to give a big shout out to him. By all accounts, I've never met the man, but he's celebrating at an In-N-Out Burger joint afterwards. Just seems like a nice dude, approachable. Everybody who's ever met him just speaks absolutely so highly of him. Again, I think he's in that Keanu Reeves territory. Everybody likes him. And by the way, quite good at what he does. Elite at what he does. He's an Academy Award winner, so shout out to him. I thought it was generally a great show last night. I thought it was smart. Initially, I was a little skeptical, but as the show went on, I'm like, yeah, it was probably smart to have the show start at 7 p.m. Eastern time rather than 8, because we know the Oscars always goes longer than it's supposed to, and they're playing people off 15 seconds into their acceptance speech, and they're all rattled. But generally, Conan was great. Wouldn't mind to see him come back next year, because I think anytime you get a comedian in that role, it's always a good thing for the audience and for the viewers at large. So by and large, great Academy Award show last night. Now we'll shift to something else. It was great. I had a quad TV situation going on, the multi-view on YouTube TV, where I got the Oscars in one corner, I got Warriors and Knicks in another corner. We almost pulled it off. I really didn't think we'd have a shot, and we're up 21 points. And it's been the season from hell for the Golden State Warriors. I had the Warriors game on against the Knicks in one quarter. I had NBA TV, but I wasn't really watching that. And then I had the World Baseball Classic Semifinal game between Team USA and the Dominican Republic. And I will say now, and I say this with respect to Venezuela and to Italy, and by the time that this clip is out on YouTube, there'll be a winner from that game. And obviously the championship is tomorrow, Tuesday night, between Team USA against either Venezuela or Italy. Italy's had like a great Cinderella type run. Italy's a big reason that Team USA even did advance to the next round. This is going to be looked at as very similar to the NFC Championship this past year between the Rams and the Seahawks. And how I think if the playoffs are chalked to a certain degree, if we get OKC San Antonio in the Western Conference Finals of the NBA, that's the finals. The NFC Championship, Rams Seahawks, that was the Super Bowl hindsight looking back. This was the World Baseball Classic final. These were the two best teams. This is as great of a collection of talent as you'll ever see on the diamond. We just put up the graphic between Team USA and the DR. Among starters, you had 17 All-Stars. In totality, if you add all their All-Star selections, 52 of them, 9 Gold Gloves, 5 MVPs. And that's, by the way, no Shohei Ohtani, no Mike Trout, who, God bless him due to injuries, is past his prime. Like, you've got Judge, you've got all these guys. So it was the thing that shocked me the most was that the big knock on Team USA is, don't know if we can trust that bullpen. Don't know. Like, we got Paul Skeens to the mound last night. You trust him. Gave up an early home run, but beyond that, he was great. It was really great to see Paul Skeens playing in a game of consequence, in a game that matters, because no disrespect to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're not going to be in those type of games anytime soon, and the sooner Paul Skeens is, and shout out to the people of Pittsburgh, y'all know I'm a Steelers fan, but the sooner Paul Skeens is out of Pittsburgh and playing, hopefully for the Boston Red Sox, the better. We want to see Paul Skeens in October. It's kind of like when we saw Shohei Ohtani before he joined the Dodgers in the 2023 World Baseball Classic. Remember when he struck out Mike Trout? And it was like, oh my gosh, this is great to see Shohei playing in a championship-like environment. And now he's won 2 World Series with the Dodgers. So the same can be said about Paul Skeens. The biggest thing that shocked me was how good our bullpen was against a stacked Dominican Republic lineup. You're talking about Fernando Tatis. You're talking about Manny Machado. You're talking about Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, who made a great play, by the way, robbing an Aaron Judge home run, I think in the 5th inning, was absolutely sensational. Let's show what Paul Skeens did against the DR. Really good, right? 4 1/3 inning pitched, 6 hits given up, the 1 earned run on the homer early on, 2 Ks, and 0 walks. The bullpen from there, and I showed a picture of my guy for the Boston Red Sox, Garrett Whitlock. Shout out to him. 2 Red Sox showed up last night. Yeah, Garrett Whitlock in the bullpen. You had Roman Anthony, my Roman Empire, who had the big home run, obviously the go-ahead home run, I believe was in the 4th inning for Team USA. But for the bullpen for Team USA, 4 2/3 innings pitched, 2 hits given up, no earned runs, 6 strikeouts, and 1 walk. And what makes that even more impressive, just on its face, like, God, the DR only got 1 run yesterday. What makes it even more impressive, and why, listen, the call at the end was brutal. If there was ever an opportunity to have the ABS system in, which is going to be in this year for Major League Baseball, that would have been the opportunity to have it, to where obviously Pujols and the DR dugout would have challenged that. They would have won the challenge, and the at-bat would have continued. At the same time, and I've said this, I've been consistent for years on this show. Anytime anybody's like, oh, the refs, or in this case, the umps, officiating, that's why we lost. If you have to rely on officiating in order to give yourself a chance to win, you did not play well enough. I've said that for years. I'll be consistent here. Looking at my notes right now, I took track of this, right? 3rd inning, Aaron Judge throws Fernando Tatis out at 3rd. 4th inning, Dominican Republic's got 1st and 2nd, no outs, nothing. 5th inning, 1st and 2nd, 1 out, nothing. 7th inning, 1st and 3rd with 1 out, and then runners in scoring position with 2 outs, nothing. And then, of course, in the 9th inning, man on 2nd, 1 out, nothing. Now, a lot of credit obviously goes to the Team USA bullpen, which again was shockingly good. And then there's also an element of, the big bats didn't show up. I mean, if you look at the box score, from this game, it's okay. You got Juan Soto, who struggled in this game. If I can pull up the box score right here. Here we go. Juan Soto in this game against, the United States. He struggled. He went 0 for 4. We got it here. Here we go. Vlad Guerrero, 1 for 4. Manny Machado, 1 for 4. Like, the guys, Julio Rodriguez, 0 for 2 with 1 walk. Like, the guys just weren't able to come up with big hits in big moments. And it goes to show you, Jeter talked about it in the post game on Fox. Like, we could talk about the big bats all we want, but the same applies to October baseball, and the same applies to World Baseball Classic, especially in this case where every game from here on out to Game 7, where pitching wins the day. Pitching gets you over the top. The Dodgers had all these big bats. They had Ohtani and Freeman and Betts and Hernandez, and they do not win the World Series without Yamamoto. Simple as that. They don't do it. And so you saw that last night for Team USA, and Paul Skeens talked after the game, after the win, about the bullpen absolutely coming up clutch for Team USA last night. Take a listen to Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I mean, we got a bunch of dogs out there that just get outs. It's been great. It's been an honor to watch them, to share a clubhouse with them, and just got on the list. I mean, it makes it a lot easier to be a starting pitcher when you can, get to the 5th inning, and that's the nature of this tournament. You got to, the innings are limited for starting pitchers, and you can hand the ball off pretty confidently that the bullpen's going to get the job done, and they've done a great job.
Again, I say this for, I'm sure, everybody except for Pirates. Of course, the Pirates fans want the team to be successful in the postseason. But I say this for fans of the other 29 teams in Major League Baseball. Again, we want to see the best players in the biggest games. This is why the whole Bucks situation with Giannis is so darn frustrating. Like, do you want to play for a contender or do you want to play for the Bucks? Choose one or the other. That's fine. But you can't have both. You just can't. The Bucks cannot contend for championships. You're still great. Giannis is still an awesome player. We want to see Giannis in the conference finals, in the finals, especially after what he did in 2021. We want to see, Luka Doncic playing the biggest games. Well, he's with the Lakers now. I'll get to them later. I don't think they have a chance to do it this year, but in the future, yeah, with the resources, with the new ownership group coming in, we want to see the best players in sports in the biggest games of consequence. So that's why it was great to see Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, would have preferred him to go somewhere else than the Dodgers, but to leave the Angels, a perpetually poorly run organization, no chance of contending for titles. I mean, they had Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout at one point in their primes, no playoff appearances. We want to see Paul Skeens in the biggest games. He showed up. It was great in general in this term. It was 2-0. ERA was way down there. We don't have the exact numbers on it, but last night he was great. The bullpen was even better for Team USA. Nervous as you-know-what last night throughout the course of that one. Every time it looks like that the Dominican Republic would either tie it or take the lead, they have runners in scoring position. Bullpen came up clutch each and every time, so shout out to those guys, and got to finish the job tomorrow night against either Venezuela or Italy. I think Italy's going to win tonight. There's certain, this applies in October baseball. When you're running on good vibes, when you're hot, like that carries. And I think that's worked for Italy. They've kind of been the Cinderella team of this tournament. I think they win tonight, and then I think we get a Team Italy versus Team USA World Baseball Classic Final for tomorrow. And the last thing I'll say before we go to break is this not as great of a way for this with the way that baseball's grown in the last few years, with some of the rule changes, with the pitch clock, with bigger bases, banning the shift, all changes that I was completely in favor of. Now, and I said this last year, the fact that you've got a dynasty, which baseball has not had in 25 years with the Dodgers, is this not as much momentum as Major League Baseball is going to have going into the season as they've had in the 21st century, arguably? To most I can remember. I'm as excited. I'm a Red Sox fan, so I'm excited for Roman Anthony, excited for our pitching. Don't know where we're going to get beyond that, but there's as much optimism for the sport going into a season as much as I can ever remember. And this World Baseball Classic is playing a big factor in that. So shout out to Team USA, representing us well, getting the job done. All right, we're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, shift to the NFL and to the NBA. Kyler Murray, a few days ago, signed with the Minnesota Vikings on the minimum. I think it's going to work. I'll detail that. Also, the Lakers and the Nuggets. What a game on Saturday night. Down to the wire in overtime. Austin Reeves intentionally misses a free throw, hits the tying shot. Luka hits the game winner in overtime. Jokic was great in his own right. I will explain why neither of those teams have any chance whatsoever of winning the Western Conference. Also get to some March Madness prediction, Love Story, Episode 7, reaction. Tons of stuff to get into on tonight's episode of Carving Up Live. So don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be back in just 1 minute. back to Carving Up Live. I appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. Before we get to our next topics, Kyler Murray to the Vikings, Lakers, Nuggets, March Madness predictions. Feel free to check out our Carving It Up merch. Scan the QR code on the top left corner of your screen. It'll take you to the website. We've got hats, we've got t-shirts, we've got hoodies, which at this point in my home state of Tennessee, could probably use some coats right now with the fact that it's snowing. Again, just 80 degrees last week. Winter wonderland today. Like that doesn't make sense. I don't like it one bit. Listen, I appreciate snow as much as the next person. I really do. But not March. Not when we're about to hear the iconic March Madness theme going into this weekend. Not while we're in the final month of the NBA season. We're getting ready for the draft, and we're getting ready. The summer's coming sooner rather than later, and we got snow. But listen, to our friends up north, I don't know how you guys put up with this. I really don't. I mean, Tennessee's not as warm of a southern state as others. I don't know how y'all deal with it. I really don't. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to our friends up north. But again, check out our Carving It Up merch. I don't think we have Carving Up coats on there, but if we do, check those out as well. We got hoodies, hats, t-shirts. We've got beach towels, so you can dream about getting ready for the for summer vacation, going to the beach and what have you. Got all kinds of stuff. You can also check out our other amazing content creators on the Grid Network. They've got merch over there too. We've got All Even Podcast, Metropolitan Report, Saturday Morning Tailgate. We've got Cowboys Camp Fan. Anything you could possibly imagine, we've got it on the Grid Network's website. If you just want regular Grid Network, GRYD, Grid Network merch, we got that too. I've got a Grid Network hat. I've worn it many times on the show. Check that stuff out as well. So scan that QR code to check out our Grid Network merch, Carving It Up merch, and the merch for our other content creators on this network. Let's shift to the NFL. It's actually our only NFL topic of the day, believe it or not. So, by the way, mock draft 2.0 coming up on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. Kyler Murray signs with the Minnesota Vikings, one-year deal minimum. Minnesota's not shelling out a ton of money to make him their presumed starting quarterback. And I say presumed, I'm sure they'll say, Kyler versus J.J. McCarthy, we're going to have a quarterback competition. This isn't going to be like Atlanta, where it's a genuine question. Hey, does Michael Penix win the job? Does Tua win the job? Kyler is a much better player than J.J. McCarthy. And while I have been very critical of Kyler in his career, mostly for the stuff that he can't control. He can't control the fact that he's 5'9". We can't control our heights. If he's made the most out of it based on his height, I've criticized him for the intangibles, for the lack of leadership, for the not studying film, the fact that was a big deal a few years ago when they had to put that clause in his contract, the study clause to watch film, all those things. Don't love that. But here's what I can say. We could show you again. We did this last week, but Kyler's total numbers with the Cardinals, not bad. Again, this is the Arizona Cardinals we're talking about. This is not a winning organization. 38-48-1 record. Not bad. Again, for a number one overall pick, you would have liked it to have been better, but it's not a disaster. It's not like Josh Rosen, his predecessor, the starting quarterback for the Cardinals. But the big one there at the bottom, 31 games missed. That's a concern. And again, a lot of that does have to do with the fact that, he is 5'9". He's a bigger 5'9" than Bryce Young. He's a great athlete. There's a reason he was a top 10 pick in the Major League Baseball draft years ago. I think at the time Oakland A's drafted him. He's a great athlete. But this is the NFL where you've got 6'3", 6'4", 275-pound pass rushers coming at you full speed. It's hard to stay healthy for 17 games over a 4-month regular season, and then hopefully beyond that in the postseason. However, if you're Minnesota, my question for the Vikings, what is the alternative? Now, I do not think Kyler will be as successful in Minnesota as Sam Darnold was, because Sam Darnold brings some physical traits to the table. Again, Sam's 6'4", so he's a huge height difference. Obviously, is a bigger body, can absorb hits, and Sam, again, is, even when he was struggling with the Jets, teammates always spoke very highly of him. They loved him. They liked being around him in the locker room, what have you. Kyler does not have those traits. With that being said, are you gonna convince the Vikings fan base? Forget that. No disrespect to the fans. Are you going to convince the locker room? Guys like Justin Jefferson, consummate professional, consistently been among the best receivers in the game. Some people think the best receiver in the game, and with good reason. Hey, we're going to trot J.J. McCarthy out, who put up these numbers last year for a Vikings team that, by the way, somehow, someway had a winning record, 9-8. J.J. McCarthy, 11 touchdowns, 12 picks, 57% completion percentage, 163. It's atrocious. 163.2 pass yards per game, 72 rating, QBR 0 to 100 of 35. J.J. was awful. He had a couple of good moments against, he had a road game against Detroit where he played well. He had that fourth quarter on Monday Night Football week 1 against the Bears. By and large, beyond that, not very good. Not very accurate. Didn't see the field well. And if you are a Minnesota team that's kind of in a win-now situation, Justin Jefferson's not getting any younger. Kevin O'Connell, I think, is a brilliant coach. I have heard some say that the Kevin O'Connell's approval rating is much higher outside of Minneapolis than in it. Fans are kind of like, okay, if you're this genius, we're 4 years in, you haven't won a playoff game yet. Okay, understandably so. I would counter and say Kirk Cousins had the best year of his career with Kevin O'Connell. And so did Sam Darnold. His numbers were better in Minnesota than Seattle. And then J.J. McCarthy, I didn't buy as a first-round talent to begin with. Am I hard-pressed to say that Kyler Murray can't play very well for this Minnesota Vikings team? Again, you're out here trotting J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz and Max Brosmer. And a fact that people kind of didn't watch last year because I think most folks kind of, outside of Vikings fans, kind of tuned out in the Vikings once they were out of the playoff mix. Minnesota was higher in the standings in the NFC North than Detroit because of the tiebreakers. They beat the Lions twice last season. The Lions, the bite your kneecap Dan Campbell Lions, 4th place in the NFC North. Vikings were 3rd. With atrocious quarterback play. And if you're a Minnesota team where it's, okay, we've got Brian Flores back, thankfully, as our defensive coordinator, but no telling when he'll get a job potentially next offseason to be an NFL head coach. Kevin O'Connell's calling the plays. We know he's the quarterback whisperer. Got great weapons, got an offensive line we probably need to address a little bit in the draft, but by and large, we trust as long as Christian Darrisaw's back and healthy, they're fine in that front. Defense, again, Flores is running that. You're good. I mean, let's be honest. Like, they beat the Bears last season. They beat Detroit last season. I see no reason whatsoever. I mean, they beat the Packers, albeit the Packers sat their starters in Week 18, but they were 9-8 with all of those issues at quarterback. I got my issues with Kyler. He's not that bad. Oh, well, he's undersized. So is J.J. McCarthy. I think J.J.'s probably about 3 inches taller, 2.5, 3 inches taller than Kyler, but not as accurate as Kyler Murray. And accuracy is not Kyler's thing, but it's really not J.J.'s thing. I would argue Kyler has a better arm. The one good physical trait you could say about J.J. is his arm, but he's out of control. J.J. can move, but he's got a list of injuries now. Kyler does as well, but Kyler is more mobile than J.J. It's worth taking a flyer on. And if you're the Minnesota Vikings, you look at a division in the NFC North that it's murderer's row here. Green Bay's going to be back. Lost some key players in free agency, but also added one. They actually added a defensive tackle from Minnesota in free agency. Jordan Love quietly had a very, very good season last year. You hope Micah Parsons is back from injury, healthy, back, ready to go. So Green Bay's going to be a factor. Chicago Bears, I'm a big believer in the Bears next season. They won the division last year. We're a DJ Moore stopped route away from the NFC Championship game. And Detroit, I think Detroit's going to take not necessarily a step back from last season, but a step back from what our expectations have been of them the last few years as a legitimate NFC contender. But Detroit's not going to be bad. Jared Goff's still a good quarterback, top 15 level quarterback. They've still got great weapons and Dan Campbell running the ship and an upgrade, we presume, at offensive coordinator. How are you going to sell your fans on, hey, one more year developing J.J. McCarthy as we go 7-10 and Bears win the division, Packers are in the playoffs, Detroit makes a run at it, we're right back to square one. We still don't have a quarterback. You know JJ's not the guy. And it's okay for front offices. I know they fired their GM in part because he decided to move on from Sam Darnold for J.J. McCarthy. But it's okay as a front office to say the Cardinals did it themselves, and they're not the bastion of a great organization, but they did this where, okay, yeah, we missed. We missed on this quarterback. This other guy's probably better. We're going to go with him. The Cardinals did it. They saw Josh Rosen like, yeah, he's not the guy. We're going to go with Kyler. They were right. If you want to talk about a well-run franchise, look at Arizona's division, the NFC West. Look at the 49ers. They used all this capital, moved up to number 3, 2021, take this high upside kid out of North Dakota State, Trey Lance. After a few starts, yeah, he's not that good. And he gets hurt a lot. Then you got the 7th round rookie, Brock Purdy, come in. It's, okay, maybe some things have to go right in our system more so for Kyler because he doesn't have the natural physical traits that Trey Lance does, but he's more accurate, he's more efficient, sees the field better. Brock's our guy. Trey's not. It's okay to move off of stuff. This is what's driving me crazy about the Steelers for years is, oh, let's just give it a few years and we can develop Kenny Pickett and we can maybe sneak in the playoffs with Mason Rudolph or Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Like, rip the Band-Aid, guys. It doesn't work. Kyler's been a Pro Bowler. Kyler's shown signs of being a productive NFL starter. You won 9 games with JJ doing what he did. More picks than touchdowns. And I'm not even a Kyler fan for the record, but I think it could work. If Minnesota is in the playoffs as the 6th seed, don't be shocked. When you have that great of a coach in Kevin O'Connell, I think he is, and then obviously Brian Flores running the defense, that's a team that can win 10, 11, maybe even 12 games. No one thought they'd win 14 with Darnold, right? And Darnold's better than Kyler. More physical and emotional attributes that he brings to the table that Kyler does not. But you'll still take natural talent over, JJ's probably a better hang in the locker room, but he's not very good. So that's where I'm at with the Cardinals moving. I'm sorry, for the Vikings making the move for Kyler Murray. And again, as for Arizona, we talked about them last week in the mock draft, and we'll continue to discuss that on mock draft. I think it would be malpractice for them to take Ty Simpson, number 3. And Ty Simpson, if he ends up in the right situation, might work. Arizona's in a complete rebuild right now. Probably will draft their quarterback next year. I expect them to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Let's secure our tackle position first and then get our guy in 2027. But we'll see. Again, mock draft 2.0 coming out on Wednesday. So that's all the NFL for today. Shifting the NBA, though. It was a great weekend in the league. I thought the Warriors were going to pull the upset last night at MSG against the Knicks. Pods had a shot at a game winner, and he missed that. And we didn't even get a shot off in the final second, so that sucked. Season from hell. It really has been. But they're competing. Point is, I don't want to talk about the Warriors. I want to talk about the Lakers and the Nuggets, who played one of, if not the games of the year. I thought OKC in Denver last Monday was a strong candidate, and still is, obviously, for game of the year. SGA hitting the game winner, and Jokic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the MVP battles, all of it. But Saturday night in Los Angeles. So the Lakers go up, I think, 17. Denver storms back. At one point, Denver's got a 6-point lead with 3 minutes left, and then it's just chaos from there. So a myriad of turnovers and bad errors by both squads, including, by the way, not an error, but a great play. LeBron James, we don't have the rights to show the footage, unfortunately, but LeBron James, just at 41 years old, year 23, this man is throwing his body on the court to recover a loose ball. You tell me, I've said this over and over and over again. LeBron ain't playing for money. He's a billionaire. He wants to win championships, but he's got 4 of those. He's done winning MVPs, got 4 of those. His legacy, by and large, is set. You know why LeBron James is playing? Because he loves basketball. And that's exhibited by him laying out on the floor in a game in mid-March. A big game, don't get me wrong. It was for the tiebreaker with Denver. But this isn't game 6 of an elimination game in the Western Conference Finals. This is a game in March. No one would kill LeBron if he didn't just throw his body on the floor for that basketball. So tip of the hat for LeBron James on that. But at the end of the fourth quarter, Austin Reeves, after committing a brutal turnover late, Lakers are down 3. Denver commits, to me, the smart strategy. I've always believed in this. Fouling up 3. They foul Austin Reeves, hits the first free throw, and perfectly misses the second. Looks like there was some backspin where he missed it off. We'll play Austin Reeves soundbite just a second, but he missed it on the left side of the rim. It perfectly caromed out to him. He hit a little runner to tie the game, and then Luka Doncic in overtime wins the game. So we could show what Austin and Luka did last night. Austin Reeves was, to me, the best player on the floor in that game. 32, 7, and 6, 12 of 21 for the field, 3 for 8 from 3, 5 or 6 free throws. That 6th missed free throw was obviously an intentional miss, and it led to the, as you see there at the bottom, the game-tying shot in the fourth. And then Luka Doncic, who quietly has been kind of awesome as of late, 30-point triple-double, 30, 11, and 13. Again, Luka's not always going to be terribly efficient. 10 of 26 from the field, 4 of 14 from 3, 6 of 9 from the line. And again, the game-winning shot, the step back on the left baseline in overtime. And before we get to why the Lakers cannot win a championship and why the team they beat on Saturday night cannot win a championship, Austin Reeves talking about the incredible intentional miss that led to his game-tying shot.
Seem they have one guy on that side, so try to miss that side and try to go make a play.
Be honest, is that something you practice?
I've done it before, yeah. So a long time ago in AAU, I tried it, and it worked. I hit a corner 3, but not to this magnitude.
And we see guys that try to intentionally miss free throws. They'll bank it in, or because muscle memory, especially if you're in the NBA, for crying out loud, the endless amount of shots these guys have taken, it's just natural to try and make the free throw. So when you're told miss it, it's it almost doesn't compute in your head. Wait, I'm supposed to not make this shot. And so for Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic did this a few years ago with Dallas, where he intentionally misses and hits a game-tying shot. And Austin Reeves saw, okay, There's two guys on the block on the right side, one guy on the left for Denver, so I should shoot it to the left, and it ended up working perfectly. So here's why the Lakers can't win a championship this year, is that, first of all, they're an atrocious defensive team, and over the course, we literally saw it last year. Just look back to last year's series against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and that will show you everything you need to know. When you have not one, not two, three, arguably 3.5 if you're talking about DeAndre Ayton, defensive liabilities on the floor, another team especially with a great perimeter scorer like an Anthony Edwards, like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, like a Wemby or a De'Aaron Fox are going to absolutely annihilate you over the course of a 7-game series. Austin Reeves is not a good defender. LeBron James, he's 41. He once was a great defender. He's not anymore. He can be in stretches, by and large, not that good anymore. And Luka just refuses. He is, listen, I've said this over and over. I'm not asking to be Tony Allen, but I've used Steph Curry as a prime example. No one's ever going to accuse Steph Curry, my favorite player of all time, of being a great defender. Steph tries on that end. Steph will, fight over screens. Steph will stay with his man. Is he going to be the guy that people attack when they're playing the Warriors? Yeah, because he's, by definition, almost the worst defender on the floor. Steph tries on that end. You're not going to get easy buckets against him. Luka, it's like it's beneath him to play defense. That said, he's an elite offensive player. But with the lack of ball movement that this Lakers team has, with the atrocious defense that they are, with the just non-existent, and this has always been the case with Ayton, non-existent presence at the rim that DeAndre Ayton can be, when you're going to be facing a big team like OKC, like San Antonio, like Denver. I mean, you can say Jokic wasn't as efficient as he normally is, still at a triple-double. Like, you can't stop Nikola Jokic. Minnesota's a big team. Like, that's going to be a problem. It's better than what they had a year ago when J.J. Redick didn't trust Jackson Hayes to play the entire second half of a must-win game for Minnesota. Not that much better. DeAndre Ayton might as well be 6'6". That's just what it is. And so when you're that bad defensively, and again, if you look at the Western Conference today, the standings go as follows: OKC, San Antonio, 1 and 2. I think it's a, barring significant injury, knock on wood, that does not happen. I think it's almost a shoe-in Western Conference Finals between those two. Lakers are the 3 seed, Houston the 4, Denver the 5, Minnesota the 6, and then a half game back of them is Phoenix, but Phoenix we don't consider a legit contender. If the Lakers let's say we get a 4-5 matchup or a 3-6 matchup, Lakers and Rockets, I would take the Lakers. Houston does not have a point guard again. I was out on Houston the second that Fred VanVleet got hurt in the offseason. Then you lose Steven Adams. There's also the weird sort of, the KD burner tweets. Like, is he on great terms with Şengün? Who, speaking of which, Şengün is a complete liability on the defensive end that I think Luka and Austin Reeves would attack mercilessly. I would take the Lakers to beat Houston. In a series with Denver, it probably goes 7, and this sort of transitions me into what I'm saying about the Nuggets. I don't buy them as a contender either. They're also, like the Lakers, a bottom 10 team in the NBA in terms of defensive rating. That's not going to work. Now, listen, by virtue of having arguably the best player in basketball on your team, you're always given a chance to win. I mean, think about last year when you're playing the 1 seed Thunder with significantly more talent than you had. Aaron Gordon's hurt. Michael Porter Jr., who's on the team at the time, he wasn't healthy. Jamal Murray was inconsistent. You had a brand new coach at the time in Adelman. The series went 7 games. And by the way, Jokic wasn't even Jokic in that series for big stretches. So just by virtue, it's like when you had LeBron in his prime or Steph in his prime, like just by virtue of having the best player, you're always going to have a puncher's chance to win any series you play. But when you're that bad defensively, and Jamal Murray's not going to be that atrocious shooting the basketball, so he was on Saturday night against the Lakers, but that playoff Jamal moniker, we haven't seen it in a while. I'd say 2023 Western Conference Finals against these Lakers was the last time we saw it. Or maybe 2024 first round against the Lakers. But wasn't that great in the Minnesota series in the 24 second round? Wasn't that great last year? Now he's coming to shape. He's having the best year of his career. He's coming to shape. Maybe we get playoff Jamal Murray in 2026. If we do, that maybe changes some things. I see this Denver Nuggets team with a second round ceiling, and that's exactly the way I feel about the Lakers. You tell me if the Lakers run into San Antonio, they don't have playoff experience. Man, I get that, but there are still, it's a matchup game over a 7-game series. As great defensively as San Antonio is, the Lakers will have to be almost flawless shooting the basketball, getting whatever they want on the opposite side of the floor to make up for, Wemby and De'Aaron Fox are just going to torture Luka and Reeves and LeBron and DeAndre Ayton for that matter, particularly Wemby. And OKC, no, I absolutely don't trust them to beat the Thunder in a 7-game series. In Minnesota, the Timberwolves haven't been very good as of late, but again, big team, that gives the Lakers problems. A great perimeter scorer like Ant Edwards is just going to attack Luka the whole time. So, sorry to burst the bubble, Lakers fans. Charles Barkley, listen, Barkley was a little too hard. We know Barkley hates the Lakers. I'm not, as a Warriors fan, I'm not terribly high on them myself. I just don't see the path for them. Barring significant injury to other contenders. If they face Houston in round 1, the Lakers win. If they face Denver in round 1, hand to God, I really don't know who I'd pick in the series. I'd probably go Denver, but you could convince me one way or the other. Outside of that, they ain't beat Minnesota. They're not beating OKC. They're not beating San Antonio. So that's where we're at today. And I say the same thing about Denver. From a matchup perspective, hey, they took OKC 7 last year. They've got experience. The Spurs don't. I get that. You don't have to be the best defense in basketball. But I think the only team, I could be wrong on this, I think the only team in the last 25 years to not have like an elite defense, like top 10 level defense, was the 01 Lakers. And they had maybe the greatest duo in basketball history, Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. And by the way, they lost 1 game that entire playoff run. So, respect to Jokic and Jamal. They ain't Shaq and Kobe, to say the very least. Jokic may catch Shaq. It's at least on the board. Jamal's not Kobe. We know that. No disrespect, but he's not Kobe. All right, so let's transition. Staying in basketball, going to the college basketball now. So what a great weekend of games across college basketball. So I mentioned that I was watching the Oscars, Team USA versus the Dominican Republic, and Warriors Knicks last night on the YouTube TV multi-view. The night before that, I was watching Lakers Nuggets and Virginia Duke in the ACC championship game. What a finish! Duke pulling it out at the end to win another ACC title. And by the way, I think they said in the broadcast something like, no team in the ACC, I could be wrong on this, but has won a football, men's basketball, and women's basketball conference championship in the same academic year. Duke, obviously, as we all remember, kind of won a wonky ACC last year in college football. They were 7-5, and yet they won the conference because of some strange tiebreakers. It wasn't 10-2 Miami. Regardless, Duke won the conference championship in college football, and then the Duke women's and men's team won their conference tournament. So congrats to the Blue Devils. But let's talk about March Madness. And listen, we're not going to go game by game breaking down brackets, obviously. However, let's start with the women's side, and I'll just go ahead and show you. Do we have it here? I'll go and show you my Final Four. This is how I have it playing out. So you might say, oh, that's chalk. You got 2 1 seeds and 2 2 seeds. I got UConn taking on Iowa in the first Final Four game, and then LSU versus Texas, SEC matchup in the second one. Again, if you look at the way that the brackets broke for all 4 of these teams, I think it favors them all matchup-wise. And also, at the end of the day, let's keep it a buck. I think this feels like, and just from a talent gap perspective, this feels like one of those Geno teams from about a decade ago, like with the Breanna Stewart teams that went undefeated and what have you, where it's, oh God, no one can compete with this team. That's kind of how I feel about UConn. I think you would be, this is the classic UConn or the field. I'm going to go on a limb here. I think you would be crazy not to take UConn in that bet. I really do. I understand Texas, LSU, UCLA. The talent gap with this program, and by the way, they lost Paige. Like if Paige Beckers was still in the squad, holy cap, they wouldn't. They'd win every game by 50. UConn ends up winning the tournament on the women's side of the bracket. I don't have any doubts about it at all. Again, this feels like 2014, 15, 16, like that era when UConn was at its absolute unstoppable, unbeatable peak when they won like 100-something games in a row before the 2017 Final Four against Mississippi State. Like, I think UConn's going to get the job done. On the men's side of the bracket, you know, it's been one of the things we love about March Madness, or the things that have made it such a special tournament over time, is the upsets. Is you have 2018, the Loyola Chicagos that go deep in the tournament, or you have some of these 10, 11, 12 seeds go to the Elite Eight. It's shocked the world. They're this underdog team, and there's usually like a white guy hitting 8 threes, and he ends up being a lawyer a year from then. That's part of the magic of March Madness, is these underdog, nobody's ever heard of the school. Remember Lehigh, led by CJ McCollum, when they upset Duke in the first round? When they beat these future NBA players. In recent years, though, because of NIL, that's kind of changed the game in many ways. Now you have more experienced teams in some of these blue blood programs. Now the excellent players from some of these mid-major schools, they're transferring to Duke and to Arizona and to all of these elite Power 5 or Power 4 schools, or schools like in the it's some of these other conferences, some of these basketball heavy conferences. Here's how I think it's going to play out as it pertains to upsets. I have 3, count that 3, 10 or lower seeds winning a game. USF, VCU, and Akron. I think Akron's going to be the lowest seed to get a W. When it comes down to it, this is what the Final Four looks like. Duke is the 1 taking on Houston, who's a 2 seed. 2 seed Purdue versus 3 seed Virginia. I think there is real value in what Virginia did in that ACC tournament. They have had a great regular season, obviously. Much better offensive teams than they've had in years past under Tony Bennett. But there's something to be said about, man, Duke or Arizona, the favorite in this thing. And you could have easily beaten them in the ACC championship game. With your defense, with your shot making, all of it. I think Virginia ends up getting to the Final Four. I think Purdue gets there as well. Duke is, I'll just say it right now, they're my pick to win it all. And as for Houston, again, I have as much respect for Kelvin Sampson as any coach in college basketball. I think he is one of the 3 or 4 best coaches in the entire sport. I would love to see Houston win it. They came so close to doing it a year ago against Florida, and boy, do I wish they had, because I hate the Gators. Though I think Florida's going down I think I had them going down in the Sweet 16. So Gators, that get that chomping out of here. They're not going back to back. That's not happening. I think they're going to face Vanderbilt again, and Vanderbilt's going to beat them. But that's how I think it shakes out. And you could say, oh, Bryson, you're going chalk. You're going, yeah. Duke in the men's side, UConn on the women's side. Listen, I think you're crazy to go with anybody other than UConn on the women's side. I just think the talent gap is that gigantic. And as for Duke, obviously got the Boozer twins. You've got an excellent coach in John Shire who's done an amazing job post-Coach K era. I think there's a momentum. I think there's a togetherness with this team that I see. There's an intelligence the way they play the game. I think Duke's going to win this thing. So, yeah, chalk. 1 seed on the women's side, 1 seed on the men's side. UConn on the women's side, Duke on the men's side. That's how I think it's going to play out. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a review of episode 7 of Love Story. John F. Kennedy Jr., Carolyn Bessette. That coming up in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. I appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. On a Monday, I tell you that this weather has just really thrown me off. 80 degrees last week, snowing today. That's no. I just, if it's going to be cold, okay, then let's just keep it cold. If it's going to be hot, great. Warm, somewhere in between. Just don't be inconsistent. That's the thing about summer and winter. You pretty much know what you're getting. Fall and especially spring, no clue. But that's such as life, I guess. All right. We've been doing this every Monday over the last month or so. After this one, we've only got 2 episodes left of the hit FX series that is also streaming on Disney Plus. Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. I'll say now what I say before every review of an episode. If you haven't watched the most recent episode and you want to, probably don't watch my review because it's going to be nothing but spoilers. So here we go. So episode 6, obviously they've gotten married in what was, I thought, a fantastic episode. So episode 7, John and Carolyn, they're in the back of a car. They're driving back to New York. And I mean, they're just lovebirds, and they're in love, and they're with each other, and they're married. And then they show up at their Tribeca apartment, and There's the hyenas. There's the press, which does nothing but harass them all episode and really all show. John in particular, but then once Carolyn becomes known, her even more so. So, they get out of the car, and then eventually there's I think a lot of people who know about JFK Jr.'s life have seen this. Even I, who didn't know much about him in particular, had seen this, where after they got married, their first official appearance as a married couple, where he goes out on the balcony, or not the balcony, on the front steps of his Tribeca apartment, and he's talking to the press. He's like, hey, she's a private citizen. It's a big adjustment for her. Like, maybe give her space. And yeah, they don't respond to that at all. At some points, there are media members, there are photographers literally on the hood of their car, which I don't know if that specifically happened, but based on the relationship that they had with the media in real life, it's something that you could believe would happen. So you've got that. Carolyn, she's already quit Calvin Klein because she feels that her very presence at the company will bring unneeded distraction and what have you. So she's like, hey, I'm a working person. In fact, the book, Elizabeth Beller, I believe is the author's name. I'd love to have her on the show, who wrote the book Once Upon a Time, which is what the show's based off of. There are lines in that book where it talks about, like, she had to work. Like, Carolyn was just someone who liked to go to work, who liked to put her hours in, who liked to. There's certain people like that, and she was one of them. And so she's trying to find a new job. So she interviews Ralph Lauren, and by all accounts, at least the way it's portrayed, it seems like the interview goes well, and she turns to the window, and there's the paparazzi. And it's like, okay, so this isn't going to work either. On the other side of the coin, you got John, who's meeting with Michael Berman and another member of George Magazine, and the sales, the magazine isn't doing that great, and they're suggesting, hey, we should have like a George TV show with you as the host. And they actually, I believe my notes are correct. They were like, hey, you can narrate a George TV show. He's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And Berman says something along the lines of, oh, so you'll narrate something about your dad's life, but not about George. Oh, okay, I see how it is. And John's like, what the heck are you talking about? Turns out his brother-in-law, Ed Schlossberg, has attached him to a documentary about his father, John F. Kennedy, the president. And he's pissed about this, understandably so. And there's a tense exchange at her apartment with JFK Jr., Caroline, and Ed Schlossberg. And he's upset about this. He's like, you never asked me. You never signed up for this. And Caroline has a pretty good point in response. She pulls out a magazine of Drew Barrymore dressed as Marilyn Monroe that says, "Happy birthday, Mr. President." Now, for those I'm sure everybody knows at this point, but Marilyn Monroe was one of John F. Kennedy's mistresses. There's, of course, the famous video of her singing "Happy Birthday, Mr. President," and she didn't just sing it like you sing to your buddy who you go to his birthday party. No, it was in a very suggestive tone that suggests that there's probably more going on behind closed doors than folks maybe initially thought. And so there's a tense exchange, goes back and forth. Before that, he's in his apartment with his best friend and cousin, Anthony Radswell, who at this point reveals to John, hey, my cancer's back. Now, Anthony had been going, and this happened in real life, tragically, had been kind of off and on with cancer treatments and what have you. And he tells John, hey, the cancer's back. And based on true accounts of what I've seen from the lives of JFK Jr., Anthony Radswell, Carolyn Bessette, and all of it, because John had lost so many people, obviously, we know, lost his father at a young age, lost his mother to cancer, and lost all these people in his family, his uncle, Robert F. Kennedy, all these people in his life. He's like, it's kind of this untold fact. I can't lose my best friend. Like, this can't happen. Like, I'm losing all of these people. And he sort of is trying to process it. And Anthony, who, by the way, I hope I'm getting the actor's name correct, Eric Bergen, I believe, who plays Anthony, striking resemblance. The casting of the show is excellent in general. Paul Anthony Kelly as John F. Kennedy Jr., Sarah Pidgeon as Carolyn Bessette, Grace Gummer as Caroline Kennedy. The casting's excellent. Even the guy that plays Ed Kennedy is, very close to the real thing. Eric Bergen, I believe, plays Anthony Radswell. Excellent casting, unbelievable resemblance between him and the real guy. But he's trying to kind of talk John off a ledge, like, hey, it's going to be fine. I don't really want to think about it right now. And it's a really tough moment to see. And so John and Carolyn have a party for all the wedding guests that, couldn't be at the 40-person intimate wedding in Georgia. So they have a party for them so that they can, get to acknowledge the new couple. And there's all these Kennedy women talking to Carolyn like, hey, you should start a charity. She's like, a charity? I haven't even thought about that. Well, every Kennedy woman has started a charity, attached her name to it. And she's like, oh my God, this is, are you not happy for our very recent marriage? And Anthony, fakes a cough. And Carolyn goes over like, what's up? He's like, I just want to get you away from them. And it's really cool to see sort of this dynamic of, John and Anthony have been friends, well, family, but really best friends their entire lives. And to see, now, Carolyn Bessette is now his wife, and how protective Anthony is of her in that moment. It's like, hey, you're my best friend's wife, but I've got your back too. And in real life, based on the book that I actually just finished over the weekend that the show's based off of, it talked about how Carolyn would accompany all the time Anthony and Carol Radswell, Anthony's wife, to hospital visits during cancer treatment, like very, very close to those two. And if John couldn't be there, Carolyn was. And it was nice to see sort of that dynamic in kind of a lighthearted type of scene, so to speak, on episode 7 that is reflective of how it was in real life. So we've got next. So during the party, there's like a political advisor. It never says, I don't know if she's a member of the Kennedy family, if she's a friend of the Kennedy family, whatever. And she has a line, something along the lines of, she's talking to John F. Kennedy Jr. Senator sounds a lot better than editor of George. Of course, kind of courting him to be like, hey, you should run for politics. Wink, wink. And he doesn't dismiss it. He just says, hey, do not tell my wife about this at all, because I told her when I proposed to her that I had no intention of running for president. Now, senator and president are different things. He never said he didn't want to go into politics. Okay. So you move on to the episode, and there's points where different flashpoints in the episode where it highlights just not just the, in some ways, physical abuse, but in particular, verbal abuse that Carolyn Bessette had to deal with the press. In fact, there's a scene where her and John are like at some black tie event, and they're like, hey, Carolyn, look at the camera, flashing their cameras, and calls her a disgusting word. And she has to keep walking as if she didn't hear it. And there's even a scene where she and John are in the back of a car. They're driving through New York City. They stop at a red light, and she looks over at a store, and it's a cardboard cutout of him kissing her hand, the iconic picture from when they got married. But it's I think it was a mannequin of a bride, and it said, it could have been you. It's like, okay, this is just hell for her right now. So you move on through the episode. We have next. Oh, yeah. So obviously after John and Caroline have had their big fight, they kind of meet up and sort of clear the air to a certain degree. John had just done an interview with the Reverend Billy Graham, and I think he asked a question, where does God's will, actually, I think I have the quote on here if we have it. Where does our own free will end and God's will begin? Sounds like you've had a lot in your mind. That's what Caroline told her brother. And he's talking about how he's stressed out. He's kind of imploring his sister, like, hey, if you could be a little bit more, if you could help my wife a little bit more dealing with the pressures and all of this. And there had been a tense exchange between his wife and his sister where Caroline isn't terribly helpful in this instance. Now, I don't know if this is based on true events. This is how the show presented it on FX. And how Carolyn is like, hey, you of all people should know. And Caroline's like, I didn't choose this life. I was born into it. And Carolyn says, well, I chose your brother in spite of this life. So there's a very tense dynamic between those two. And Caroline and John are trying to resolve it and what have you. So you've got that. And so Carolyn then meets her sister, Lauren, who at this point I think is the VP at Morgan Stanley. So she's crushing in the professional world. And they meet at a coffee shop, it looks like, or like a little, like a diner. And of course, here comes the press through the windows, snapping pictures. And it's a really, really devastating scene. There's a lot of those in this episode with Carolyn and her dynamic with the media and with the paparazzi in particular. But there's a line Lauren has with her sister where she says, you could skip down the streets of New York City and they would still find something negative, because she said, happy couples don't sell papers. They will find some negative angle, true, whether it's true, twisted, or completely false, just to make sure that they get that they bring in the money for their tabloids. It's a very sort of, she's of course trying to be protective big sister and what have you, but she's also honest with her. And then there's the kind of the last big scene in the show where John, the whole episode, talking about, hey, it's going to die down. It's going to calm down. Now the fact that we're married, like we're not, hey, is she going to tie the knot with the heir to the Kennedy throne? Well, no, it's already been done. So like that story's gone. It's going to die down eventually. It actually just gets worse. And there's a basically monologue that Carolyn has to her husband, that Carolyn has with her husband about how, you said you had it under control, but it really feels like the exact opposite. And she talks about, and I never thought about this aspect of it. You think about her friends in New York City reading the papers, but she's like, what about my family back home? At this point, her grandmother was still alive. What about my grandmother reads this? And my mom and my friends from back home read this. They're like, what happened to that kind girl from Greenwich? Like, what happened to her? She's been sucked into this world and she's not the same person. And we've lost her. And I will say this. I think Variety, I could be wrong, I believe it was Variety, has both Paul Anthony Kelly and Sarah Pigeon as the front runners to win Emmys in their particular acting categories. It'd be really dope if Paul Anthony Kelly did, especially in his first acting role. 1 for 1, not bad. I put this on social media and I stand by it. Sarah Pigeon, go ahead and write down that acceptance speech at the Emmys this September, because I think that scene locked it up. Just the great acting performances make you feel something, make you feel for the character, especially the fact that she's portraying a real person who we don't know that much about in the grand scheme of things. It was a devastating scene when she's lamenting how she feels like she's like almost lost herself in all of this. And maybe her family and loved ones will feel the same way about her. And that's essentially how the episode ends. And I know episode 8, based on the trailer for it looks like it's even more tense. So bottom line, it feels like all the happy, fun, optimistic moments of the show, that looks like that's over. But it's a portrayal of what happened in real life with this couple. So again, I say it after every reaction. Cannot recommend the show enough. If you haven't seen it, Love Story, each and every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on FX, and it airs at midnight on Disney+. It's captivating television. And by and large, based on the book that I read from Elizabeth Beller, Once Upon a Time, in which the show's based off of, pretty consistent with the facts. Maybe not in how they're directly portrayed, but in certain instances, like, oh, that's a reference to this thing that happened in real life with these people. So again, just overall takeaway from the episode, very well done. I loved that Anthony is becoming, I loved Anthony's dynamic with Carolyn and kind of being that protective friend with her, the way that he's been with John and how he just completely wraps his arms around her and how he's got her back and all of that. And I'm curious if the Carolyn and Caroline dynamic is going to get explored more in the last 2 episodes. That's going to be interesting to see because we really don't know anything about their relationship by and large. So it's going to be interesting. I know the episode, I will say, does end with a cliffhanger of John meeting with the political advisor who talked to him at the party about potentially running for senator. So I'm sure that will be a big topic in episode 8. But by and large, unbelievable show. And I think Sarah Pigeon just won an Emmy. The scene was that good. But she's been great in general in the show. That scene in particular, unbelievable stuff. With that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X. We're going to have Mock Draft 2.0 on the show, so some minor tweaks, changes. May have some trades, may not, may not. We'll see. We've still got another, I think, 6 mock drafts after the one I did last week, so stay tuned for that. I'm sure some NBA stuff, March Madness, first 4 begins tomorrow. I do not like, Tennessee got the worst draw possible. So we're almost certainly going to have to play Miami of Ohio in the first round, who, went undefeated until their conference tournament. If not, it's going to be SMU, who would have beaten Miami of Ohio. And if we win that game, we got to play Virginia. And in my bracket, I love my Vols, but I'm objective. We're not beating Virginia. If we do, hey, I'll come out and admit I was wrong on Monday's show. I do not see that being the case. So I think, unfortunately, Tennessee is going to be a round of 32 exit, and I don't like that one bit. Regardless, Great, one of the best weeks in all of sports, one of the best upcoming weekends in all of sports, just non-stop basketball for the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament on the men's and women's brackets. You could say I'm going chalk. Well, guess what? That sometimes that's how it goes. UConn's coming out of the women's side, Duke's coming out of the men's side, and that's how it's going to be. So set your brackets, have fun with your friends, the whole bit. Hope everybody has a great week. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And by the way, Steelers, don't sign Aaron Rodgers. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.